Can you guys hear me? Okay.
There we go. Now I can hear you.
Okay.
How is things tonight?
Good.
How's your injury?
It's good. We're live right now on YouTube, just to remind you.
All right. Now we all know that you're well. Hello, Barb.
Gwen, I'm just doing a volume check.
Okay, can hear you.
Okay,
Sound
thank
good.
you.
Hey, Gwen, say something and see if I can hear you.
I can hear you, Barb. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I couldn't hear you before. That's why I wanted.
Okay, great. All right, thanks.
Oh, you're cute, Steve.
Which Steve?
Remember, we're live right now.
That's okay.
We had to make that part of the record, Gwen.
That's right. Okay. It's Monica.
How is Emmy?
Getting better.
So, well, Sue was after me to take down the Halloween decorations, and by about 8 o'clock last night, they were all gone. I don't know. I don't know.
They blew away.
When blew him away?
All gone.
Oh no.
Man. See, that'll teach you to procrastinate.
That's right.
We were driving across the Sandusky Bridge during it. And the
Ooh.
water was like,
I
Sure,
saw
I'll
pictures.
oh,
Yeah. Saw pictures of that. I wouldn't have gone by through that.
it was a mess.
Anybody see the trailer that was parked up across from the Cliff Germans and on Todd Summers' property? It was the tree service company. The trailer got blown over.
No.
Yep.
Man.
Laying on its side.
Yes, laying on the side.
Yep, noticed that today.
I have a picture of on Jackson Street, a trampoline that was lifted up in the air and landed on a transformer and shorted out power to the whole neighborhood.
Oh, jeez.
Mayor, don't ruin my report.
Okay.
It'll save us time, Tony. You don't need a report now. We heard. It's live. We got it. Chris Howard, can you hear me tonight? Can I do a sound check on you?
I can hear you. Can you hear
Okay.
me?
Yep, you're good.
I don't know about that.
We can hear you. missing Frank, aren't we? Usually Frank's on by now. Does anybody hear if Frank is not going to be on? Steve Halivax, will you get a hold of him, please, for me?
Working on that now. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, here he comes. Steve, I got him. Okay, Steve, it is 7 o'clock.
Right, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Vermillion City Council public hearing for today, November 16th, 2020. This is a public hearing involving a land use zoning variance of 4.00 acres to Road to Hope in the B3 Highway Commercial District located at 1863 Liberty Avenue, as recommended by the Vermillion Planning Authority. I believe there are two people who would like to speak regarding this matter. But first, I guess it would be okay, Mr. Valerius, are you able to kind of just give us a quick background on this, the way it's zoned now and kind of what they're looking at?
Tony, you're muted.
Yep.
Okay.
Currently, the property is zone B3. It at one time had a residential use. There were apartments on the location, but and it was there legally non-conforming, because once it became B3, then you can no longer have residences on there. So what Road to Hope would like to do is have a mixed use there, which includes office space and some recovery housing. And they want to remodel the existing apartments on site and for recovery housing. So in order to do that, since that location lost its legal non-conforming use of residence because it sat vacant for over a year, they would like to get that back. And to do so, they went to Planning Commission. Planning Commission favorably recommended it to council. And so now it's up to council to see this through.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Valerius. Now, my understanding is we have two individuals, Jeff Cams and is it Joe Williams?
Joe Hernandez.
And
So I don't know if Jeff is here. Is Jeff here? Are you on the iPhone name
Yes.
here? Okay, I
Yes.
just wanted to make sure. Okay.
Okay, so we do have Jeff and Joe. Is that correct?
Yes. Joe,
Okay,
you guys can unmute yourself for questions.
all right. Would either one of you like to make a presentation regarding kind of where you're coming from?
Go ahead, Joe.
Joe, you need to unmute. I think he's having some difficulties.
Okay.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, why don't,
So,
Jeff, do you
Yeah, I
have
can-
anything you can say?
yeah, I can give like kind of an overview, I guess.
great.
He's more technical with the site plans and everything, but as an organization, so what we're looking at doing is a recovery housing program. We've been operating certified recovery housing for the last 13 years in Lorain and Erie County. We have multiple locations. When we acquired the motel property, just the setup of it was kind of ideal. Like, yes, it's been vacant for a while and the property and buildings themselves need a lot of attention, but the setup of it is kind of ideal for what we do. Being able to have like all the individuals in one location. We're looking at it for women with children, which we already operate one women with children program. And so the units would be utilized for housing the women with their children in. And then the main building in the front, we're going to renovate to move our administrative offices there. So all of our management staff would work out of there. It's more centrally located for us as far as like all of our different locations. That property is like exactly in the center of all of our different locations that we have now. And then also we wanted to leave some open space in the main building to be able to provide daycare for the women for their children when they start working and getting their life back in order and everything like that. So just the way that the property was set up was like ideal for the purpose of what we were looking for the women with children, being able to have their own units, having the center space in the back that we could provide, like, playground area, everything like that. And then organizationally being able to be in the center of all of our different, projects that we have going on right now.
Okay. All right. I'll tell you what, I will open up to council. I do have a few questions, but I want to see if any of my fellow council members have any questions, and I don't see everybody the way my screen is set up. So
Barb.
yeah, Barb, go ahead.
I have a couple. First of all, I'm thrilled to have somebody to fix up that piece of property. It's been such an eyesore for so long. But I just wonder, so are we talking about long-term housing for these women and their kids, or short-term? Are these kids going to be going to our schools, and are they going to be part of the community, or are we looking at a short-term?
Okay, our hopes is longer term housing. So recovery housing, in order to be certified nationally as a recovery housing program, there is no defined length of stay. So there isn't a set time frame where they have to move out after a certain, whether it be 1 year or 2 years. As long as they're comfortable, they're doing well, they can stay, they can live there indefinitely. Some of our other projects, so there's different levels in recovery housing. So like a level 3 is where somebody would start when they're coming straight out of detox or straight out of treatment. And then there's level 2s, which is kind of a step down or continuum. And then there's a level 1. So these would be level 2, level 1s. So like they've already started into the program, they're kind of establishing, and they're moving into the next continuum of that. So yes, they are establishing, they're going to be working in the community. Their kids will be attending school locally. And so it's now ideally, like, we would like to see them completely out on their own at some point. But historically, what we've seen over the years that we've been doing this too is they establish their life in that community. They've established, a support group in that community. They've established employment in that community. So their life is kind of based in that community. So a lot of them remain in that community as, new citizens of the city of Vermillion.
So there's no limit to when how long they can stay with you. That could be a permanent home for them.
Correct.
Okay. The other question I had was and these are more technical things. It looks like that the front structure that you were going to make the maintenance garage is closer to the street than the setback. So Tony, I guess for you, a question for you would be, can they make improvements to that building even though it's doesn't fit in the setback?
Well, I think that what we need to see first is their submission to Planning Commission as far as the plans go. I mean, I have not seen any drawings yet, so I mean, the building's there. They would probably have to get a variance from Board of Zoning Appeals. That may be something they would have to do, but they have to submit to Planning Commission for the drawings. So,
And if I can, Steve, the only other question I had was at the Planning Commission meeting, you mentioned that you were going to be selling the back house, the house to the south, but it doesn't look like on the Lorraine County website that that's a separate parcel.
No, we're not. We're not selling the back house. We're utilizing that for staff housing.
Okay.
So, and we actually have residents, like we have staff members that currently reside in that house. It was a rental home when we had acquired that property. Okay. And there were tenants living in it. And when their lease was up and they moved on, was when we converted that over. We have 4 female staff members that live in that house. They have been for probably the last 4 months. That's a separate parcel.
Oh, it's not set up on the Lorraine County website as a separate parcel.
We bought it at the first parcel we bought from the county. The second parcel we bought from a private owner.
Really? I don't know. Like I said, I was just looking at the Lorraine County website. Okay, thank you.
Yes, for sure.
Any other member? Yes, Frank, Mr. Councilman Luca. You're on mute, my friend. There you go.
How about now?
You're good.
Okay. The how many full-time employees do you,
You cut out, Frank.
how many full-time employees do you have on that site you anticipate?
So we'll have a total of 8 plus our management team, which is about 5. So we'll have about 13 full-time employees working out of that site.
Okay, thanks. And I noticed on the site plan, there, one of our city ordinances would be there needs to be a sidewalk along that whole front parcel along Liberty Avenue. I didn't see it on the site plan. I just wanted to point that out. And also I would hope that there would be a landscaping plan similar to Defense Soap. We're really trying to dress up that side of town. And of
Yes,
course,
for sure.
it would enhance your business as well. And those were my comments.
So our plan is, and I think the site plan might have been an initial for what we needed to submit to zoning. That's not our design phase. Like, once we figure all of this out with, are we getting a mixed use, what we have to base that off of. But our plan for the front section of that landscaping is we're actually going to have a design company work with that, and like we're going to do something pretty extravagant there. Like we're looking into like a waterfall design right in that circle area of the grass along the front there that has like a waterfall coming down with the organization sign in the front and a picture of me on the top. And no, I'm just kidding. The last part I'm just kidding on, but
Okay, well, thank you. Hopefully not a pole sign, but anyway, a ground sign would be much more of an enhancement to your property. Okay, well, those only my comments. Thank you.
Councilman Luca, anybody? Mr. Holmes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Camp, for explaining everything. Yeah, we look forward to having that located on the east side. Again, you've proven your I better state the term business. In my line of work, I know these recovery places definitely do help, and we look forward to having one on east side of town, and we look forward to the final site plan once it's presented to planning. So again, thank you for what you guys do, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Barb again.
Well, I was just curious. How are you funded? How is
so a variety of different.
Because you are a nonprofit, right?
Correct. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. A wide variety of different pathways. So we do have some county funding in both counties that we have organizations at. We also have some state funding through a different couple pathways. We're also part of a federal grant for pregnant postpartum women. And then we also have funding through the residents. Like, so when they get to the final tier, like where they're in the level 1 housing, at that point, they're, back on track, they're self-sufficient. And so at that point, they pay their own cost of rent.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other council members? Mayor Porto.
Yes, Mr. Cams came to Service Director Valerius and I think it was July of last year, with the presentation of his plans for this parcel that we're talking about now. And like Councilwoman Brady, I was thrilled to have another section of the Eastern Corridor to be cleaned up. I said to Mr. Cams at that time that your facility must have some curb appeal, and he assured me that it absolutely would. And I think that it's a high use for that section of property to be a sober living facility for all the reasons that Councilman Holmes mentioned. I also have to say that the county commissioners of both Erie and Lorain County could not give higher praise to Mr. Cams and his operation. And I believe it's his 8 other facilities around Lorain and Erie County. And tremendous testimonials for his integrity, his method of operation, his compliance with the local communities, and in the end, the high service that he provides to people in need. So I ask council to give favorable consideration for his request tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any other members of council? Okay, I'm going to make a quick comment. I hope it's going to be quick. It's going to be to some extent personal. As a recovering person in this community, separated from my drug of no choice for 24 years, I will tell you that this organization is top notch. They not only are giving service and compassion to the women that are in recovery and are about the right thing. They are not just people that you know, are not putting forth their effort for sobriety and being clean. They are going beyond that and trying to make a life for themselves. But the other huge, really priceless gift that they give is the protection for these children that come in. The children don't have, and you know, we could sit and talk about choice and addiction and so forth. Well, the children don't have a choice. They're where they are in life through no fault of their own. And what this organization does is basically understands addiction as a family disease and then cares for the family and looks out for these kids. So I just think, Mr. Cam, your organization is top notch. It's extremely, as the mayor said, well respected throughout this community. And the city of Vermillion, I think, would be very, very fortunate to have not just your services and the work you're going to do, but just your compassion and care and love of other people in our community. So I want to thank you for what you do. And I will, does anybody else have a comment?
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Homer Taft.
Okay, Mr. Taft, good
You
evening.
need to mute yourself, Homer.
Good evening, Council President Herron, members of council. I don't oppose per se the particular Road to Hope proposal, and I'm sure that I'm glad to hear they're a very responsible organization. But I do have some questions that largely relate to: are there conditions on the use and density if we're allowing a non-conforming use? One of my questions, I'm assuming that this recovery housing is for anyone addicted to drugs or alcohol, number one, and the operators have already spoken about it. It's intended to be principally a long-term facility. I don't know how many units there are there, but I am wondering how many units there are. I'm wondering if there's a limitation of one adult per unit, how many children per unit. I'm assuming that if these people are going to work, they're going to require cars. So we're talking about 13 employees plus all of the residents potentially having cars. Is there adequate parking for those purposes and any visitors? Are there limitations on whether they can have more than one adult in a unit, overnight guests, things like that? And again, part of my question is not just what is the plan, but what are the lawful limitations that are placed on it under either the zoning or the exceptions to zoning now being granted?
Okay.
You want me to answer some of them
Yeah,
questions?
do the best you can. There were several questions in there, but I think, you know,
Right.
we're talking about some pretty serious
So-
issues and,
Right,
about.
so we're looking at 8 2-bedroom units and 6 1-bedroom units as they sit right now after renovation. So the 2-bedroom units so it all goes by square footage. So we meet so part of our certification process, we're only allowed so many square foot per person. So it's not like there's some places out, like typically or historically, like people have a certain idea of when they hear sober houses or, sober living environments where there might be some place in the neighborhood that's got 12 people stuffed into a home and, they're all in bunk beds. Like that's not what a recovery housing program is. And part of our national certification, they set quality standards to adhere by that. So in a 2-bedroom unit, at the most you're looking at is 2 adults and 2 children. In the 1-bedroom unit, 1 adult and 1 or 2 children. There's a maximum limitation on so we have rules in place or policies in place that, like, so they don't have overnight guests at the units. That's part of the recovery housing program. They are allowed visitors during the day. As far as parking goes, each unit has its own driveway. So the individuals that do drive and have vehicles, they have their own driveway at their unit to park in. The staff, yes, will be in the front. And if they had a visitor, like during, normal hours or up to 11 o'clock at night, those visitors would also park in that front parking. And also one of the things too is the property will be staffed 24 hours. We'll have an actual paid staff member 24 hours a day on site because of the children. One of the things that one of the gentlemen was saying earlier is that's like, we take very seriously, the responsibility in housing children. So we do have a paid staff member on site around the clock. All of our sites or projects right now are all under surveillance outside of the locations. So it's pretty structured. There isn't too much that goes on that we're not aware of. And capacity wise, I think with the 8 2-bedroom and 6 1-bedroom, I think total capacity is 24 adults and I can't remember exact numbers, 24 adults and up to 28 children, maybe. Because there were a couple units where had enough space for the mother to have 2 children with her. So.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Any other citizens have any question or comment? I only see a few people. So Gwen, do you have any hands up?
No, I see no reactions either.
Oh, very well. Very well.
Oh, Homer Taff has got his hand up again.
Okay.
I probably missed a question in there.
Actually, you didn't. I think you covered pretty much what I asked, but I'm wondering from the city side, I don't know if it would be Mr. Valerius or someone else that would speak to what are the conditions of occupancy that are allowed by the city? Is there any maximums or could that change in the future? What parking regulations are there? Is what the city has in place and what is proposed to be enacted later this evening in line with what the operator has laid out?
I don't know if Tony or Chris can answer that tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen any drawings submitted to Planning Commission. Certainly there are density rules. Certainly there are parking rules for, as Homer said, density. And once a set of drawings is submitted to Planning Commission for review, we can take a look at that to make sure that we abide by the ordinances for parking and density both.
Anybody else? Not seeing any hands. All right. That was an excellent presentation. We appreciate that very much, Mr. Cams. And so with that, that matter is on for third reading this evening.
Steve.
Yep.
We have a reaction. They're going to have to identify themselves. I have him as John Galt, if that's correct.
From the
it's Drew Early.
Okay.
I just wanted to add that I don't see anybody speaking out against this, and I think this is a fantastic service that these guys provide, and I see no reason why not to approve it. That's it. Thank you.
I agree 100%. Thank you. All right, I'm looking. Okay, do we have anybody else? I don't want to miss anything. All right. So then are we, at this point then, Gwen, we'll go into our council meeting?
Yes.
Very well. Tonight we have Vermillion City Council meeting for Monday, November 16, 2020. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of reflection or silent prayer. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United
States of America, and to the
of the
republic
republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty
liberty
and
and
justice.
justice.
If you could call the roll.
Council members, if you can unmute right now, please. Halifax,
Present.
Brady, Barb, unmute, please.
I'm sorry, present.
Luca,
Here,
Gahan is absent. Holmes,
Here.
Stark,
Here.
Karen.
Present. Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes of the November 2nd, 2020 City Council meeting.
So moved.
second,
Brady,
Yes,
Luca,
yes,
Holmes,
Yes.
Stark,
Yes.
Halifax,
Yes.
Karen.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, we'll go on to correspondence. I do have one letter I'm going to read. Gwen, we don't have any other correspondence other than that one particular letter, correct?
Correct.
Very well. This letter's undated. However, it states, Dear City Council, just wanted to give what I would call a reality check. We all come from different walks of life with varying experiences, political, religious, moral views. This is just one small part of what makes this country great, just like this city of ours, a melting pot of people, ideally working with each other for the common goal of a better tomorrow. It saddens me to say that I don't always see that with the way this city council operates, whether it is being dismissive when citizens speak, clearly not paying attention, and texting during meetings, and even unwarranted profanity from certain members of council. I take great issue with the way City Council President Steve Herron scoffed at myself and Homer Taft during this last week's committee meeting. As an elected official, I find this to be truly abhorrent behavior in dealing with his electors. I find this to be especially true when, in my most humble opinion, he is incorrect in what he stated while behaving this way. To allege that I in any way made reference to Ordinance 2020-44 is a violation of the Fourth Amendment is simply laughable, and actually that is what he did. He laughed and continued to inform us all that the Fourth Amendment, I'm going to start that sentence over. To allege that I in any way made reference to Ordinance 2020-44 as a violation of the Fourth Amendment is simply laughable, and actually that is what he did. He laughed and continued to inform us all what the Fourth Amendment is. It was, quote, about the nicest way I can put it, end quote. I'd love to hear the not nice way to put it because I felt that was fairly condescending. In reference to his comments about wanting to know who is at the property and what they are doing, this I claimed is not only a violation of the Fourth Amendment, but this ordinance will not give you that information or the power to get it. So I wish you would stop bringing that up. He made claim that the right of referendum has nothing to do with declaring an ordinance an emergency. I respectfully disagree. I made several attempts to contact Steve via phone to discuss both of these instances in which I believe not only is he incorrect, but also his lack of decorum. I was unable to reach him at no fault of his, as I never left a message for a return phone call. I had planned to clarify my Fourth Amendment comment because it seems he was confused, as well as discuss Ohio case law on the right of referendum and the loss thereof when an ordinance is passed by emergency. Lastly, on that note, I have read I'm gonna start that over again, I apologize. Lastly, on that note, I have read meeting minutes and watched far more city council meetings in the past 3 months than maybe anyone else has. So I had already known that a large number of ordinances are brought up as, quote, emergency ordinances, end quote. But frankly, I was shocked to hear that it is common practice for you to do this. I feel this body is abusing their power by passing such a large number of ordinances as emergency. I think that the city council should verify the validity of Steve Herron's comments in regards to the right of referendum with the law director. Regardless of this outcome, I suggest the council take a good look at their common practice of passing emergency ordinances. Yours in Liberty, Drew Worley. So please, Gwen, if you could just make that part of the permanent record of the meeting, because I know you will.
Yes, I will attach it.
Thank you. And we have no further correspondence, so we'll go to President of Council's report. The first thing on my report is probably to me the most important one. That is my apology to citizen Homer Taft, who made a comment. I don't remember exactly what the comment was, but it referenced the right of referendum after an ordinance is passed by emergency. I incorrectly stated the law. My position on that was based on my experience but Mr. Taft was correct. So my disagreement with Mr. Taft was in error. So I just want to make that point, and with my sincere apologies to Mr. Taft. The second thing I would like to discuss is it does appear that there are a number of orders that may be coming down from the governor's office or his administration regarding social distancing. The numbers, as we all know, for COVID-19 are skyrocketing. Please, I ask my fellow citizens to wear masks, practice social distancing, and avoid or simply follow whatever mandate comes down. And you know, at the end of the day, we don't have drones over your houses to watch what you do. It's not what we want to be about, but we want to spread this, stop the spread of this terrible pandemic. So please do the best you can to practice these social distancing habits that many of us have acquired. And please do the absolute best you can to we can get through this this holiday time and get back to some numbers that are more manageable, and we can start doing some of the things that we like to do. So that's just what I'd like to say on that. Second, all meetings for the remainder of 2020 are going to be on Zoom, and that is simply for our protection. We can do these meetings. I appreciate everybody's efforts, but we're not. We've only got 2 more in December, unless something comes up that we need to do that, and so that will be on Zoom. And third, or I beg your pardon, fourth, I do want to thank the City Services Department. I know a number of trees were down. I know one in particular, and I believe there were reports of other ones that came down yesterday during the high wind. And my understanding is that they went out and took care of those matters relatively quickly to keep our area safe. So I just want to say, and that's coming from citizens who were in contact with me throughout the day yesterday doing that. So I just want to thank the Service Department. I don't have anything further. We will go now to committee reports, and we begin with Councilwoman Stark.
Okay, I'm making sure I'm unmuted. Thank you, President Herron. I have no report for Vermillion Community Services. I do know I got an email the other day. They're working on their donor campaign. They'll be sending their donor letters out shortly, as they do every year this time of the year. But because of the pandemic, we have not had a meeting in several months. And our legislative meeting will be on December 14th. And it'll be on Zoom. So we'll plan to see you all there. And that concludes my report.
Steve, you're muted. Okay.
Thank you, Councilwoman Stark. I apologize. We'll go to Councilman Luca.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Utilities Committee will meet on December 14th. And the Port Authority, there's no meeting at this point scheduled for December. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Councilwoman Brady.
Thank you, Council President. The Planning Commission met on November 4th. There was only one thing on the agenda. That was 218 Mornington. And it was just a lot split to add 5 feet to that lot from the neighboring lot. The next Planning Commission meeting is December 2nd. Finance Committee met on November 9th. The only thing on the agenda was discussion of changing the definition or the description for the secretary for the law department. changing that description, and adding some responsibilities and making it a paralegal with a salary correction. And the next Finance Committee meeting will be on February 14th, and that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman Brady. Are there any questions or comments for Councilwoman Brady tonight? Okay, thank you. We'll go to Councilman Holmes.
Thank you, Council President. Health and Safety met on November 9th. Captain Graham stood in for Chief Hartung. Just advised that they had 2 officers with the COVID-19. One was already on his way back. Other one was going to be back soon. And he assured that they were following all CDC COVID-19 protocols in the office. He also mentioned that the police department is up to date with the state's collaborative certifications. Topic 2 was the fire chief's report. We had some technical difficulties. Thank you to the mayor. We were able to get the fire chief's report. Fire chief reported 12 incidents in October. The year to date, 152. He also mentioned that the Brownham Township had received some CARES Act funding, and through that, they decided that they would like to give $100 per firefighter to the Vermillion Fire Department. We have some more information coming regarding that Amy Hendricks is looking into, but I'd like to thank Brownhelm Township for their thinking of our firemen, and also we get we've been receiving equipment from that funding as well. So again, thank you to Brownhelm Township for that. That concludes health and safety. Next meeting will be December 14th. Parks and Rec will be tomorrow at 6 p.m. And if you'd like to attend the meeting, please contact Gwen Fisher, and she'll CC that you can be invited to the Zoom meeting. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Councilman Holmes. Do we have any questions or comments from members? Okay, we'll go now to, there's no stormwater advisory report. Councilman Skahan is not with us this evening. So we'll go to Councilman Hulavax.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Streets, Buildings, and Grounds next meeting will be on Monday, December 14th at 7 o'clock, and that will be a Zoom meeting. The Contractors Board next meeting will be December 1st at 6 o'clock, and that will be a Zoom meeting. And Zoning Board of Appeals also meet on December 1st, and that'll be at 7 o'clock via a Zoom meeting. And that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hulavax. We'll go to the Mayor's Safety Director's report. Good evening, Mayor Forthover.
Good evening, Council President. And as Council President has mentioned, there was a lot of work to be done yesterday with the high winds. It actually stretched the resources of our safety and our service departments. The fire department toned out 21 of their personnel in every truck on the fleet to assist yesterday. Police department assigned all available resources to the storm implications, and dispatch was flooded with calls. The service department had all available personnel and all vehicles out. And the requests ranged from down trees across roads with tangled live wires inside of them. Gas lines were ripped away from houses, and trees leaning against houses. I won't mention the trampoline again, since the service director is going to be covering that in his report. But there's outages that will remain for probably sometime yet this week. Ohio Edison was alerted to each case, but was as equally overwhelmed as our own resources were. I want to give my heartfelt thanks to all city employees who responded to the calls and addressed the safety issues of its residents last Sunday. Now, in the mayor's report, I have received the Erie County Health Department's COVID-19 numbers for Vermillion. And they, of course, include both Lorain and Erie counties. And I want to mention there is a map going around that I saw published in the Morning Journal, and it had Vermillion down as only 52 cases. But I spoke to the author of that article, and that is accounting for Lorain County only. The numbers that came through today from the Erie County Health Department for both Lorain and Erie counties. Again, last spring we had 9 to 12 active cases. Last summer we had a high of 26 cases. 4 weeks ago, I reported 55 cases. 2 weeks ago, I reported 82 cases. And as of today, last week was reported at 136 active cases in the city. This includes 29 new cases, which is a real high, and 3 hospitalizations. Unfortunately, no deaths. This week's report is a 65% increase over 2 weeks ago. And 2 weeks ago was a 49% increase over the 2 weeks before that. So I think we all can appreciate the pattern here and the gravity of exactly how fast this is growing. And it's not just Vermilion, it is all of our surrounding communities in our state. Pertaining to the governor's order that I think Council President mentioned earlier, the governor's new retail order goes into effect today. I walked around downtown this morning and I noticed that almost all of the shops have posted on their doors the mask and distancing and capacity requirements that the governor mentioned, and these were done individually by these businesses well before the governor ever required it. So kudos to our local businesses, most of them anyway. Residents who feel the need to report violations, and there are quite a few that call, and you do not need to call City Hall or the Vermilion Police Department. The numbers to call can be found on the City of Vermilion Facebook page. Enforcement of violations are done at the county, and now I understand from the governor, the state level, but the city really does not do any enforcement. So we'll be happy to encourage everyone to comply, but the actual enforcement's not done by us. I also asked not to put Vermilion's merchants and restaurant owners in danger of losing their business. Respect their request to wear masks and their request to social distance. I've actually seen people not wearing masks brush past merchants at the door who are requesting them to wear a mask. They demonstrate the height of selfishness by disrespecting the merchants who are trying to make a living and they're disrespecting the health of the general public. Think of others and wear a mask. And on another subject, with all the focus on virus, we really can't let good news about lake levels go by. While our lake is still above average, Lake Erie water continues to drop ever since a record-setting May. June of 2020 was below the level of June of 2019. And receding levels are attributed to a lower than average snowfall last season and lower than average rain this past year. While still 29 inches above average, it is expected to be 2 to 4 inches below last year's levels for the remainder of 2020. And that concludes my report, Council President.
Thank you, Mayor. Any questions or comments from members? All righty, thank you very much. We'll go to Mr. Valerius for the Service Director's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. The windstorm we experienced yesterday left approximately 200 Vermilion residences without power for a period of time, according to First Energy's External Affairs representative. Most power outages were a result of downed power lines from trees or branches, but one neighborhood experienced an outage due to an airborne trampoline that as of today was still tangled in the power lines. And I too would like to thank the street department employees who were out most of the day and night yesterday, clearing the streets of trees and other debris. I wanted to alert citizens that crews are currently in town repairing catch basins, and there are also crews replacing or repairing streets from main breaks and valve replacements. As always, I ask that you use caution in these areas, slow down, and keep the workers safe. Lastly, I just wanted to inform council that the administration has met with representatives from Erie County to begin negotiations on the sanitary sewer agreement, which expires at the end of the year. This agreement, which has been in place for 31 years, services businesses and residents south of the city on State Route 60. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Valerius. Do we have any questions or comments from members? All righty. We'll go to the Finance Director's report. Ms. Hendricks, good evening. You're on mute, Ms. Hendricks. There you go.
Very good. I think that our council clerk helped me out there. The email this afternoon outlined the amendments to the appropriations that are on the agenda for this evening. We have, in addition to the routine line item adjustments, some things to note as we're approaching the year end. The Fire Capital Fund 207 has been increased to allow for any last minute expenses that may be over and above the amount available in the fire station project fund. And they do have adequate funding in their levy fund already to accomplish that goal. The Cemetery Fund 212 has experienced some additional expenses this year with the replacement of a mower, some other significant vehicle repairs, as well as tree service to eliminate potential risk. In fact, that expense grew again over the weekend as a product of our windstorm. So to be able to meet those expenses, I'm asking for a transfer from the general fund of $25,000 to be budgeted for contract services to be sure that we are able to get through the end of the year. We're still waiting for the complete quote on a vehicle that's in for repair right now. So I want to make sure that we have adequate funding to close the year for that. The Tree Commission Fund 240 did receive additional donations of $4,231 to fund some projects that were going on in town. So I'm asking that appropriation increase be authorized to cover those projects. Fund 804, which is contractors' deposits. I'm asking for an increase of $5,000 in that appropriation, as well as the authorization of an advance to the same amount. That fund actually is a rotary type of fund that we encumber the costs for the engineering services as people come in, contractors come in and register the things needed for their projects. We collect a deposit up front, but also there are additional fees that can be assessed if an additional inspection is required, things like that. So there is a bit of lag time sometimes between when we have to encumber the funds for those services. It's billed and collected. So I'm asking for that $5,000 advance to assure that we do not have a deficit in that fund in closing the year. Then when we get into 2021 and the timing and all the collections are made, those monies will then be repaid because that fund is self-supporting. Fund 405, the Harborview project, I'm increasing the appropriation there to cover the remaining cash available in that fund because we've had some ongoing additional expenses, plus the utilities, as well as some consulting and legal services related to that project. Fund 406, which is the lighthouse donations that we have just recently received. While we have had no requests for any expenses yet, we also don't have any history on what may be requested between now and the end of the year for any decorating expenses or winterizing expenses. So I'm asking that $2,000 of those funds be encumbered just so that we are able to honor any requests from those committees if such requests are made between now and the end of December. And the temporary budget is going to be presented at the December meeting. I would really like to see the closing numbers on November revenue to get a more clear picture of where we might be heading for 2021. Also, for council members that are representatives to various boards and commissions and committees that support the council and the community, If you have budgetary requests for those from those committees, I would like to have those brought to the Finance Committee meeting in December, so those can be discussed and evaluated. So we have all of those requests at one time, so the council can evaluate where we may have needs and what resources we have in total to allocate. So that was the same process that we used last year. And I would like to, again, encourage that as well for the 2021 planning for those. And I would like to request that the appropriations be approved this evening. Obviously, we're going to need these things in place before the end of December to move forward with various things of transactions that will be happening. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. If not, that would conclude my report.
Barb has a question.
Amy, the only one that really concerns me is the cemetery fund. I mean, from past discussions, that's supposed to be a self-funded, it's supposed to self-fund. And if we have to transfer 25,000, that kind of indicates that we're not doing that, right? And it, you know, we're supposed to be saving some money for in perpetuity when we don't have any more space. So it's come up before, you know, prior to you being finance director. And I know the discussion is ongoing. I didn't know where you stood on that.
Sure. As far as the perpetual maintenance funds that we are collecting as a part of each lot purchase and a portion of the various services that are happening right now for planning, we set those into a special fund, and those are being held there and accruing interest. We have a special investment account for those. While it's not a large balance, they're in Star, Ohio, but that does allow me to be able to add funds as they come in each month, and the interest. That balance is still relatively small. This year, with the payment of the tractor, or a mower was needed to be replaced. And we've had some very significant repairs on another piece of equipment. And if Mr. Valerius wants to hop in and remind me what that was. I can't remember the exact piece of equipment that is. And we also have had several $1,000s worth of tree maintenance, taking down dangerous limbs, removing trees that were at a risky position. This has been an unusual year for the cemetery, and we are going to have to look at that going forward. But it's really one of those things where we can't always fully anticipate or control that revenue, but they're dealing with some old equipment there at the cemetery, just as some of our other departments are.
So it's not time to panic yet?
No. And these are just the things that happen that I don't like them any better than anybody else does when we have unanticipated expenses and things like that. But I don't think that this is a case at all where anyone is being careless with.
Oh, no. Oh, I didn't mean that.
Right. So yes, it is something that hopefully we won't be having to do going forward in future years. But when we get to the end of the year, Mark Riddle and I always have some conversations. So that will be one of the topics we'll talk about.
Can we expect that fund to reimburse the general fund at some point?
That would be great. But one of the things that we've also experienced, and it's not going to be to the degree of $25,000, but apparently there had been times in the past where people had prepaid for services back a great number of years ago, and those funds either were not put into that cemetery fund or otherwise had to be spent for things like mowers and things like that. So we did have to make the transfer in earlier this year for roughly $4,200 for, it was a time when we had a couple of services that had been prepaid. And since those funds had not been remaining in the cemetery fund, we had to make a transfer at that time as well.
Thank you.
If I may, the mini excavator that the cemetery uses did have to go in for some significant repairs. They have been using the street department's backhoe when they can. However, that machine is extremely large to try and get in between the stones to dig holes. And sometimes they can't even use it, to the point where they have actually had to rent another mini excavator. So that was a substantial cost right there. So.
Thank you, Tony, for helping me out with that.
Okay, any other questions from members? Gwen, do you see any hands? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Hendricks. We'll go to our city engineers report. Mr. Howard.
Thank you, Council President. Highbridge Road reconstruction is completed. We have a final walkthrough with the contractor this week to review some of the punch list items. Second item is I ask council to consider passing ordinance 2020-56 tonight. This is the consent legislation for ODOT to perform bridge maintenance on the State Route 2 bridge over Baumhart Road. And that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. And you're requesting 2020-56 be passed tonight to get the money for that payment of that service?
There is no money in that. That's 100% state.
Oh, I see. Okay, just to get to get the maintenance done quickly?
It's just to approve. It's just allowing the mayor to sign it, the consent agreement with ODOT. So they're looking to construct this next summer of 2021.
Understand. Thank you. Any other questions from members? Any hands, Gwen?
No.
No? Okay. Thank you. All right, we'll go to our law director's report. Mr. Stumphauser.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. I respectfully request council pass ordinance number 2020-45, creating a new position in the prosecutor's office of paralegal legal assistant. It's essential for the effective operation of the prosecutor's office. And again, thank you for council's consideration. So.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments for Mr. Stumphauser tonight for members of council? That was discussed at committee last week. So we now have Mr. Stumphauser. Anybody?
No.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Mr. Stumphauser. We do not have a response to the audience. Open to the audience, of course, being on Zoom. There's no sign in. So if there's anybody who would like to speak tonight.
Drew Worley.
Very well.
A couple things. First, I just want to applaud Council President for not only taking the time to speak with Homer, but to realize the error that you had made and apologizing to him for that. With that being said, I hope that you all get together as a council and realize now that these emergency ordinances do not allow us the right to referendum, and take a good hard look at your practices. Because in my mind, many of these things have no business being passed as an emergency. And with that, probably over 90% of the ones that you do pass wouldn't go through referendum because people wouldn't take up the time to petition it. So I hope that you guys look at that, realize that you are taking away that right to referendum when you do pass things by emergency. And again, I just wanted to applaud Steve Parent for taking that time to speak with Homer and realizing that he was wrong. And he also, I just want to add to my correspondence, Steve did reach out to me today in email. I haven't responded yet, but I will. and I look forward to talking with him. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. It's not Galt, it's
Worley.
Worley. Very well. And does anybody else like to address council?
Homer Taft.
Very well, Mr. Taft.
Thank you, Council President Herron. I wasn't expecting to speak tonight, but I will thank you for your very kind and generous words. Really, no apology is necessary because I'm sure you were speaking from what your belief was, and you've been very generous in indicating the different result obtained. I won't speak about it at length, but I'm sure Council knows I've spoken many times on the subject of emergency. I will now share, since it's come up, one of the many court decisions from the Supreme Court of Ohio that outlined that emergency ordinances are a pretty limited category, and each requires a statement of what the emergency is, or the compelling reason for the waiver of the normal waiting period and passage. And so I hope that you'll give that some thorough consideration. In that regard, I would associate, I guess, with Mr. Worley's remarks that it's meant to be unusual, not that you can't ever do it. It doesn't have to be that life or property is in jeopardy. There can be other reasons that an ordinance has to go into effect promptly, but it's not intended to be an everyday occurrence. Just real briefly, the council president mentioned having meetings the rest of the year on Zoom. I hope that's true. However, the state authority for that expires December 1st. I would hope that not only the council president, but the mayor and all members of council, everybody in my hearing tonight, would consider contacting those legislators they know to encourage them to enact what I believe is already a statute that has been proposed, to extend it. And I would hope it would be extended for at least 6 months, because given current indications, we're just not sure how quickly we're getting out of this. So I hope you'll all speak up on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. 1 second here. I shouldn't respond. I'm going to respond to that last part regarding Mr. Taft. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe I should be, but I don't have all the time in the world to sit down. I'm not exactly sure where the authority comes from. At this point, with all due respect to everybody, I do believe that I do have the authority to have Zoom meetings for the public health. But that being said, I am going to make telephone calls to some people. I'm actually going to be in Columbus for the rest of the week, so I am going to try to do that. I am going, and Homer, I don't know if you received my correspondence a couple of weeks ago from the Secretary of State, who had sent out a number of quite a bit of information on how to conduct public meetings. Now, this came out like last April, I think. Okay, so I'm not sure where that comes from, but I will look into it. But I at this point, whether or not there's a statutory allowance for Zoom meetings or not, I'm going to do the best I can to make sure that we're all safe. But I guess if we have to, we need to consider that. But I do want everybody to know, regardless of your opinion of my decision, I do want you to know that really everybody's safety and health and their families is the most important. I do believe we can conduct our business and get the city's business done under the law of the land. Is very important to me, and so I know it is to you too. So that's just my response. But I'm going to make sure that we do it under the law as I look to the law for how we need to go about this. Having conversation with another lawyer today, it's interesting. This is all new ground for us. We don't really know exactly. We don't have some case, that didn't have Zoom back in the 1918 pandemic. So we really don't have anything to look at other than make our best decision. But I do hope that everybody understands that community involvement is critical, and I'm doing everything I can to make sure we are all doing what we can. So getting a little bit repetitive. So we'll move on. We do not have any old business. We do not. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Gwen.
Drew Worley would like another opportunity to speak.
Very well.
I
ahead.
believe Homer's talking about House Bill 197, and if memory serves, it's Section 12 that gives you the authority, and I believe he is right on the end date.
Okay. House Bill 127, you stated?
197.
Thank you.
Yep, Section 12.
Very well. Okay.
That's it.
That's it. All right, thank you. We do not have any old or new business. So at this point, then we'll go to reading of the ordinances. Mr. Stumphauser.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Before we start, I just wanted to notify you and council that there's currently a bill that's been introduced in the House in Columbus to extend the ability to conduct Zoom meetings. I haven't seen a copy of the first draft, but I'm assuming that in view of the circumstances, it'll receive favorable consideration by the Ohio legislature and of course passage by the governor. Okay, having said that, going to the ordinances. The third reading of ordinance number 2020-30, an ordinance to amend section 61801 entitled, quote, dogs and other animals running at large, dangerous and vicious dogs, end quotes, of chapter 618 entitled, quote, animals of the codified ordinances of the city of Vermillion, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
All right, we're going to go ahead and do is a little bit different perhaps. I'm going to ask if there's a motion to adopt ordinance 2020-30 and declaring an emergency. And then we're going to discuss that.
So moved.
Second.
Are you declaring an emergency in this one?
Well, I am at this point, so there's a motion, but we don't, this is not going to be my next issue. This is a matter that, you know, given community feedback that we've had, not with from a number of speakers, you know, we can strike the declaring an emergency, pass this ordinance and be effective in 30 days. Or we can keep declaring an emergency. So if we want to keep that language declaring an emergency, is there any necessity to do it at this point?
I guess I would say, since we've, you know, been working on this for so long, that 30 days really is a non-issue, and we're going into the winter season anyway. So I don't think 30 days is important one way or the other.
Very well. Okay, so we can go ahead and pass that and strike that language, correct? Gwen?
Okay, so you're adopting the ordinance and striking the emergency clause, correct?
Yeah, how about I'll make that motion. I'm not sure if we're doing it right. I think we are.
Okay. Yeah, I need a second.
Second.
Monica?
All right,
Okay.
Any further discussion regarding this ordinance?
I almost hate to say anything, Monica, because you've worked so hard on this. But would anybody consider changing prevent escape to maintain control? Somebody had called me and suggested that might make more sense, but I know it's such a late time to do that. Like I said, almost hate to say anything.
And that was a recommendation of the law department too, just to remind everybody.
The recommendation was to use the term maintain control, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, Barb, my own opinion on it would be to keep the term maintain control, but that's just me. So, does anybody else want to discuss that or any other aspect of the ordinance?
Well, you mean we would change it to maintain control? Right now, doesn't it say prevent escape?
It does say severe enclosure to prevent escape, except when the dog is lawfully engaged in hunting.
So I'm
accompanied by the
changing
owner.
that to maintain control.
Okay, you want to change it to maintain control.
Right.
For the-
It just seems like it makes.
Law director had brought in prevent escape, so I'm gonna go with what the law director changed on that, assuming that she looked at the, you know, case law, criminal law, and that sort of thing. So
Okay.
I'm fine with it, Barb, but I totally.
Pretty much clarified that prevent escape is to maintain control. So
Okay. Okay. Like I said, I hated to say anything. But that's what I
All right.
Good.
Anybody else have any comments or questions? Okay, Gwen?
Sure, okay. Halifax,
Yes.
Brady,
Yes.
Luca,
Yes.
Holmes,
Yes.
Stark, Monica,
Yes.
and Heron.
Yes.
Okay, I will strike the emergency clause and that will go in effect in 30 days. So December 16th.
Okay, the next matter is tabled, correct? The dog park fund.
Yes.
So we'll go to the next one.
So third reading of ordinance number 2020-39. In ordinance pursuant to section 1240.02 of the codified ordinances of Vermillion granting a land use zoning variance to Road to Hope in the B3 Highway Commercial District located at 1863 Liberty Avenue, Vermillion, Ohio.
We have a motion to adopt ordinance 2020-39.
So moved.
Moved. Second.
Any further discussion? I think it was a fantastic job done by the folks from that organization, and Barry, I just tell you, I'm going to vote yes, and I'm very proud to do that for personal and public reasons. So if there's no further discussion, Gwen?
Holmes,
Yes.
Stark,
Yes.
Luca,
Yes.
Brady,
Yes.
Halifax.
Yes.
Okay, Jeff, I just wanted to let you, oh, did I say Heron? Sorry, Heron.
Yes.
Motion carried. Jeff Cams, I just wanted to let you know this will take effect in 30 days. It will be effective December 16th.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for
Have a great night. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, the next matter is tabled, so we'll go to 2020-45.
What about 43?
I think we missed 43.
Good. I apologize. I'm sorry.
That's
Let me
okay.
read third reading of ordinance 2020-43. In ordinance establishing Fund 710 Payroll Clearance Fund that becomes effective January 1st, 2021.
We have a motion to adopt ordinance 2020-43.
So moved.
Second.
Not sure who seconded that. Is that
Brian.
Brian?
Sure.
Okay. Any discussion? Do you have any discussion?
Yeah. Nope.
Okay. Halifax,
Yes.
Brady,
Yes.
Luca,
Yes.
Holmes,
Yes.
Stark,
Yes.
Heron.
Yes.
Motion carried, and that will take effect in 30 days,
January. Okay. All right. Thank you.
December 16th.
You're right. Okay. So next matter is tabled. Proceed to 2020-45.
An ordinance authorizing the creation of the position of paralegal / legal assistant to the Vermillion City prosecutors and abolishing the position of secretary in that position and declaring an emergency.
Okay, do we have a motion to adopt ordinance 2020-45 and declaring emergency?
So moved.
Second.
I'm in favor of this. As I said during committee, I'm also in favor of declaring emergency in this particular ordinance, as I think that that is a matter of creating a position that can be benefited from if that position was dealt with in the next 30 days. So I do believe that the city does have an interest in that. So that's my own opinion. Does anybody have any disagreement either about, anybody want to be heard on the ordinance, proposed ordinance?
Barb.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, are we comfortable with how the job description is set up now? Do we need any more direction as far as how we compensate and what is included in this ordinance? And we just have a pay range and this fact that it's 2 days a week or 16 hours. Do we need to set it up somewhere in the city, pay ranges or do any of that kind of thing, or say who raises how her raises or his raises are, what they go with? Do they go with the 860? Do they just go by ordinance? I mean, how is it working?
I'd like to respond to that, Mr. Council President.
Yes, please. Thank you.
All right, the last version of the ordinance that I saw was the disposition was 16 hours a week. It's Tuesdays and Thursdays. And the reason for the range in compensation is dependent upon the qualifications of the individual applying. So let's use, by way of example, the current occupant of that position, although it's called a secretary's position, has been a paralegal for many, many years. She is ultimately going to seek other employment. So obviously we're going to be looking for another paralegal, preferably a paralegal that has a wealth of experience in criminal law. Having said that, the determination as to the pay range, I would ask that it be left the way it is, because it's really a function of the law director to determine, in conjunction with the prosecutors, how much this person should be paid. And I wanted it to have a range so we would be able to keep a person by periodically giving raises after we determine how effective they are in the job. And of course, this is an at-will position. If they don't meet the criteria we feel essential, that person can be removed. So, the law director and the prosecutors would be making the decision about the compensation subject to the limitations put in the ordinance.
Did that answer your question, Barb?
Yeah, I didn't know whether it, fell into, like I said, a pay range or grade in the city, but if it doesn't have to, fine, I'm okay.
Any other questions or comments from members?
Steve Holloway.
Yeah, I have no problem with that, other than if anybody is given a starting wage and any department wants to give them a raise above and beyond what the Union 860 gives, I have no problem with any administrative group coming back to council and getting approval. That is part of our legislative that we've been involved with for years. So yes, I don't care about the range, but any increase above and beyond should come back to council on that.
Okay, thank you. Was there a response? I'm sorry, I heard somebody. Okay. A limited view here in new glasses, by the way, so I apologize.
Have a little distraction in the background. I apologize.
I've got the same one.
Understandable.
So do we have any other questions or comments from council about this particular ordinance? Okay, Gwen?
Halifax,
Yes.
Brady,
Yes.
Luca,
Yes.
Holmes,
Yes.
Stark,
Yes.
Heron.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Proceed.
Third reading of ordinance number 2020-46, an ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Vermillion to enter into an agreement with South Shore Dredge and Dock, Inc. of Lorraine, Ohio, to provide ice breaking services in the Vermillion River for the period of January 1st, 2021 to February 28th, 2021, and declaring an emergency.
Do we have a motion to adopt ordinance 2020-46 and declaring an emergency?
So moved.
Second.
I am, of course, in favor of busting up the ice on the river. I do believe that it is suitable for declaring an emergency. The reason for that is because I think that this particular company, South Shore Dredge and Dock Incorporated, deserve to know that they will have that business. They can make their adjustments to provide that service to the city beginning on January 1. It's one of those things we hope we don't really need them, but it is what it is. So that's just my opinion on the emergency situation on that. So is there any further discussion regarding this ordinance?
Steve Holloway.
Yeah, Council President Steve Heron, I agree with you. This is actually a position that goes out to bid. We only get one bidder. So for someone coming back in 30 days and questioning it, we have nobody else that even wants to do it other than South Shore Dredging. So I have no problem with the emergency clause on this.
I agree. Anybody else? Okay, Gwen?
Holloway.
Yes.
Brady,
Yes.
Luca,
Yes.
Holmes,
Yes.
Stark,
Yes.
Heron.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Proceed.
Second reading of ordinance number 2020-48. An ordinance confirming the appointment by the mayor and the Vermillion Parks and Recreation Board of Chad Coons as Recreation Director to the City of Vermillion for the 2021 recreational programs, establishing a salary for such appointee, establishing compensation of certain authorized positions within the Vermillion Department of Parks and Recreation as have been favorably recommended by the city's Parks and Recreation Board and declaring an emergency.
That will go to the third reading. Proceed.
Second reading of ordinance number 2020-49. An ordinance authorizing the director of the mayor of the city of Vermillion, Ohio to receive subsidy from Brownhelm Township, Lorraine County, Ohio for emergency medical services to the city of Vermillion's contract with Life Care Ambulance, Inc. of Elyria, Ohio for the period of January 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2021 and declaring an emergency.
That will go to a third reading. Proceed.
Second reading of ordinance number 2020-50, an ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor of the city of Vermillion, Ohio to enter a contract with Lasco LLC of Baltimore, Maryland for the purchase of polyaluminum chloride to be used in the Vermillion Utilities Department and declaring an emergency.
That will go to a third reading. Proceed.
Second reading of ordinance number 2020-51. An ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor of the city of Vermillion, Ohio to enter a contract with PVS Technologies of Detroit, Michigan for the purchase of liquid ferrous chloride to be used in the Vermillion Utilities Department and declaring an emergency.
That will go to a third reading. Proceed.
Second reading of ordinance number 2020-52. An ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor of the city of Vermillion, Ohio to enter into a contract with SNF Paladine, Inc. of Riceboro, Georgia for the purchase of Clarific CE 1593 polymer to be used in the Vermillion Utilities Department and declaring an emergency.
That will go to a third reading. Proceed.
Second reading of ordinance number 2020-53, an ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor of the city of Vermillion, Ohio to enter into a contract with JCI Jones Chemicals, Inc. of Barberton, Ohio for the purchase of liquid chlorine to be used in the Vermillion Utilities Department and declaring an emergency.
That will go to a third reading. Proceed.
Second reading of ordinance number 2020-54, an ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor of the city of Vermillion, Ohio to enter into a contract with Bonded Chemicals, Inc. of Columbus, Ohio for the purchase of hydrofluoric acid, liquid caustic soda, sodium that one I can't pronounce, and sodium bisulfate to be used in the Vermillion Utilities Department and declaring an emergency.
That will go to a third reading. Proceed.
First reading of ordinance 2020-55, an ordinance amending ordinance 2020-5 adopted March 2nd, 2020 to make appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures for the city of Vermillion, Ohio for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2020 and declaring an emergency.
We have a motion to suspend the rules with respect to ordinance 2020-55 and declaring emergency.
So moved.
Second.
I
Glenn?
think I've got it. Brady,
Yes.
Luca,
Yes.
Holmes,
Yes.
Stark,
Yes.
Hollivax,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
motion carried.
We have a motion to adopt ordinance 2020-55 and declare an emergency.
So moved.
Second.
Second was Ms. Councilwoman Brady. Yes, I'm for this, as what we normally do to keep the money
Right.
proper. I think it's suitable for an emergency as we look at our finances on a regular basis, and we want to have that information. We want to have this go into effect immediately, so our finance director and then the administration as a whole can have that money and know where they are at any given time. So that's my opinion on that. Is there any other questions or comments regarding this particular ordinance? Okay. Go ahead.
Grady,
Yes.
Holmes,
Yes.
Stark,
Yes.
Luca,
Yes.
Hollivax,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
motion carried.
Okay, proceed.
First reading of ordinance number 2020-56. An ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Vermillion, Ohio, to enter into a consent agreement to perform bridge maintenance on Lorraine State Route 002 SLM 03.32 LNR over Baumhart Road in the city of Vermillion of Lorraine County, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
We have a motion to suspend the rules with respect to ordinance 2020-56 and declaring an emergency.
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Gwen?
Luca,
Yes.
Stark,
Yes.
Holmes,
Yes.
Grady,
Yes.
Hollivax,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
motion carried.
We have a motion to adopt ordinance 2020-56 and declaring an emergency.
So moved. Second.
I believe the ordinance is appropriate to get the maintenance agreement done. I also believe an emergency is appropriate, given the representations made by Mr. Howard and the fact that the consent agreement, once it's done, it can be sent through proper channels to get accomplished. There's no sense in waiting 30 days. That could only inhibit the situation. It certainly would not help it. So that's my position. Are there any questions or comments regarding this ordinance?
No.
Gwen?
Okay, Stark,
Yes.
Holmes,
Yes.
Luca,
Yes.
Grady,
Yes.
Hollivax,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
motion carried.
Proceed.
First reading of ordinance number 2020-57, an ordinance accepting coronavirus relief grant funds from Brownhound Township, which will be transferred to each firefighter of the Vermillion Fire Department as hazard pay who worked as a firefighter with the department during the period of April 1, 2020 through September 30th, 2020, and authorizing the Fire Director of the City of Vermillion to allocate those funds as provided by the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act and declaring an emergency.
Now, my apologies to the administration. Did the administration request this be done this evening or no?
Amy, does this have to meet a deadline for the coronavirus funds? The CARES Act funds?
In my notes, it said
You're
November
muted.
20th. In my
Yeah.
notes, it said November 20th.
It does, you're correct.
Okay.
If she
Amy, you're
had-
muted.
So that's a yes, there is a deadline on that matter?
That's correct. The monies have to be, they had to be encumbered by November the 20th and then expended by about the third week in December, so the funds can be reported then to the federal agency. So there's not enough time to go with a 30-day provision on this.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And if I don't write it down on my paper, I gotta ask. So
No
do we have a motion to suspend the rules with respect to ordinance 2020-57 and declaring an emergency?
So moved.
Second. Okay, I'm just gonna go with that one. Holmes,
Yes.
Stark,
Yes.
Luca,
Yes.
Hollivax,
Yes.
Grady,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
motion carried.
We have a motion to adopt ordinance 2020-57 and declaring an emergency.
So moved.
So moved.
I have Holmes for moved. Who seconded?
Second.
Luca.
Frank.
It's a
Okay.
matter that I will be voting yes on with enormous thanks to Brownhound Township and a recognition of our firefighters. It's extremely well deserved, and their graciousness is heartfelt from my perspective. So I will be voting yes on that. I believe it is appropriate for an emergency based upon the representations made by the administration concerning the deadline. That is, I think, in 4 days. So, yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Grady,
Yes.
Luca,
Yes.
Halifax,
Yes.
Holmes,
Yes.
Stark,
Yes.
Heron.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, and proceed, last item.
First reading of resolution 2020 R-16, a resolution amending section 4 of resolution 2019 R-2 of the 2019-2020 sidewalk program is adopted February 4th, 2019, and declaring an emergency.
That matter will go to a second reading.
Steve,
Yes.
I have a question on this one. Since this is already on the books and it had a deadline date of June of 2021 and we're extending it to October of 2022, I think I would say we should pass this to get a hold of all of the people that were on the list to start this work. Some of them might already start getting ready to contract people. This gives me an opportunity to again notify them by certified mail, letting them know that the deadline date has been extended, mainly because we're doing the Liberty Avenue water line replacement project.
Okay.
I think the quicker we let those residents or those businesses know, I think the better.
All right. So with that, appreciate that. Thank you. So with that, is there a motion to suspend the rules with respect to resolution 2020 R-16 and declaring an emergency?
So moved.
Steve, oh,
You can talk in a minute after he makes the motion.
okay. All right.
Do we have a second on that, Cole?
Second.
Steve, did you want to talk, Halifax?
Yeah, I kind of disagree, but we can do it if you want. It's mid-December, November. Very little concrete is being poured at this time of the year. It's just on people trying to finish up. You know, look at the temperatures. People aren't going to just say, hey, I'm going to go do my sidewalks because I got an ordinance that says I got to do it by midsummer of next year. But if we want to pass it and get it going, that's okay. But just FYI, it's not an emergency at this time of year. But
I just didn't know if people were going to start setting people up to contract with, like now, getting it ready. So that's why I just thought if I give them a good notice ahead of time to let them know that this is what we're doing.
like I said, we can do it, but it's mid-November, 50 degrees outside, 30s at night. People aren't just hiring people to do driveways and sidewalks.
Let's just do the vote on the suspension of the rules and then.
I don't have no problem passing it, but it's, like I said, it's not a really emergency, you know, to do this.
Okay. Halifax,
Yes.
Brady,
Yes.
Luca,
Yes.
Holmes,
Yes.
Stark,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
motion carried.
Do we have a motion to adopt resolution 2020 R-16 and declaring an emergency?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, I would just say that I think it's suitable for an emergency. Because, you know, they may be lining up their contractors for next spring or late spring. You're right, Steve. Anybody would pour concrete now would be out of their minds. All they're doing is asking for trouble. But if they are sitting down with their finances, trying to figure out what to do next year, maybe that'll give them a chance to plan it out. So that's where I am. But anybody else? Any other comments? Okay.
Holmes,
Yes.
Stark,
Yes.
Luca,
Yes.
Brady,
Yes.
Halifax,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
motion carried. I will notify those businesses by certified mail this week.
Thank you. Okay. Yes.
Before we end this part of the meeting, can I make a motion that we strike the emergency from all our ordinances and add it back whenever we feel appropriate after the discussion today? I mean, it would make more sense to have it removed and put it back whenever we feel it appropriate.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Yeah, and it really, at the end of the day, I think we have it in there. You know.
I don't know, I guess I'd rather see it gone and put it in when we feel.
Yeah, I guess I don't. Yeah, we can do that, but I have a little bit different opinion. I'm trying to be.
Okay, that's fine. I
read the case law to say that many cities do this regularly. It's not unlawful for cities to do that regularly.
Yeah,
But
that's
but there's a revised code section on it. There's quite a bit of case law. Apparently everybody in the 80s was going crazy on it because I think it all comes from the 80s. But you know, I mean, we could do that. I don't think we need a motion to do that. I can just, you know, when we draft an ordinance, we don't put it in. If we want to make that the exception rather than the rule, that's fine. I mean,
Okay. However you want to handle it.
why don't we discuss? I tell you what, we'll discuss that at legislation. Can we put that on legislative?
Okay.
When?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think Frank had a comment too. Did you?
Yeah.
I just want to know if it complicates Gwen's life one way or the other.
Well, when I prepare the ordinance to go on to be read on the council agenda, it's in final form. It's on our legal paper. It's very expensive paper. So if I put the emergency clause in, we can do what we did tonight. We can pass it. Don't declare emergency, but just make in the motion say strike the clause. And then I would just go in and strike the clause, red marker. Then I would put at the bottom of the ordinance effective, 30 days later. If I don't put the declaring emergency in, then everything's going to come to you in draft form. And then after the meeting, usually we try to get signatures that night if it passes. So we won't be able to do that anymore. I'll have to go back, prepare everything in our legal final form and take that route. It's really up to however council wants it.
And really, frankly, any further discussion should be a committee because this was not on our agenda. So we really need to put up a committee on
Put some thought process behind it. I'll do whatever you guys want. It doesn't matter.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. So the next meeting at this time is going to be 6:00 p.m. regular council meeting on Zoom on December 7th, 2020. And I will be, as I said, reviewing and talking to people and finding out exactly what process is. I'm pretty sure we'll be able to do it that way. If something changes, I'll let Gwen know and she'll send out the notice with plenty of time. I really don't want to meet in person just for safety purposes, but it is what it is. So we'll follow the law. And I appreciate Gwen. Excellent job. Thank you so much for getting everybody together. And I thank everybody for their cooperation tonight. Have a good night.
Have a great Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Great too.
Wow.
Thank you.
And thanks, Frank, for the
Cutting out. Okay, if I can ask everybody to leave the meeting and then I'll stop the recording. Thank you.